Hey guys, welcome back to the Passive Buddies podcast. And today we are going to cover one of the brick and mortar style ways of making passive income and how to make it in real estate. This is going to be a Brandon special because Brandon is in this a lot more than what I am. He's literally going to give you his tips, his tricks, his hacks on exactly how to make money in real estate. Brandon,
What's
floor
up,
is
man?
yours, pal. Hit me.
Yeah, so there is a lot of different ways you can make money in real estate. A lot of different ways. I actually started off as just started off buying single family homes, and then we got into multifamily homes. But a great way to start if you're thinking about getting in real estate, you can look at renting out, doing your own house hack, or even renting out your own home. And so when I say house hack, that's typically buying a 2 to 4 unit property and renting them out and living in one of the units themselves. So you'd rent out one side and then live in the other. That's like a duplex or 2 unit, or you can upgrade and get like a 3 unit or 4 unit. You can get things higher, but then you get into commercial loans. And instead of being able to use like a 30-year kind of FHA loan, and that's the cheapest and easiest way. I wouldn't say it's the cheapest because your mortgage is going to be higher, but you can literally eliminate your rent by owning a 4-unit, renting out one of the units yourself, and then renting out the other 3 to other people. And so that's a great way. Or just say, for instance, like we have a whole upstairs that we don't use in our house. We could literally rent that out to someone for $1,200, maybe more, probably more, maybe like $1,600. And that would eliminate half of our mortgage. And if we had someone else, say, living in one of the 2 front bedrooms that are not being used at like $800 each, we could have literally someone renting out most of our house besides the kitchen, the theater room, my office, and our bedroom, and they would pay our whole mortgage for us. And we could literally rent free. And you could do that with a 4-unit too. Instead of renting, each room, you would essentially have a small apartment. That's kind of what a 4-unit is. Each unit is like its own a little apartment, and you can live in one apartment and then rent out the other 3, and then eliminate your rent overall while other people are paying down your mortgage, which is kind of nice because then you can use that extra money that you would be paying for a mortgage or for rent to buy another apartment building or pay off loan debt or travel, whatever that is to you. So it's an easy way to get into real estate investing. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, basically, mate, when I started buying houses, literally, it was because I had kids. So the whole like renting it out to other people and stuff like that. I did share a rental with someone, but that was good. I was paying rent as well. But no, never done the whole house hack thing. Although it's always appealed to me, especially when it was like, oh, buy like is it a 2 or a 4 unit? Because you just call like a units are flats, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a unit's like a apartment.
Okay, cool. So buy 4 apartments and then rent out.
But they're attached to each other.
Yeah, okay. So like in a square or like just stacked or?
Either or.
Oh, okay. So it's not as much like the movies. So how did you get the money? Because this is basically this is the first bit, isn't it? It's like, this is where everybody struggles. Like, how did you get the money to afford the 4-unit or a 4-unit?
Yeah, so I guess I can give you my kind of story on how I got started in real estate. But so when I was before I get into the story, with house hacking, like you could literally just live in an apartment and own say for instance, a 1-bedroom and rent out the other and reduce your expenses. And that's not really house hacking, but that's kind of like practicing being a real estate investor, because they're essentially paying you rent and you're sharing the lease in a sense, or subletting it, and you can literally make money that way. People do Airbnb arbitrage, where they rent out a apartment building, and then they not apartment building, apartment, like a 2 or a 3 bedroom, and then rent it per room, and then collect money that way, cash flow without actually owning the real estate property, which is kind of nice because then you don't need the down payment, a large down payment. You can literally get the benefits of the cash flow. You can get the benefits of paying. You don't really have to pay for the repairs, but you can pay for the turnover. Like if someone, like a short-term rental, you can have a cleaning crew go in there and pay that off. So there's expenses you can write off. So and you can actually write off the rent because it's a business and it's part of your business. So that, I mean, you get all the benefits of being Airbnb and using an arbitrage method between the price of the lease and then the actual cash flow that you're getting. So you don't need really any money besides like moving to furnish it or to put money for a lease deposit. So there's a lot of different ways you can make money without any money, investing any money. But how I started is I was a personal trainer. I lived very frugal. I was making 6 figures. I had like 40 to 60 clients training with me every week. So I was working quite a bit, and I couldn't afford anything in California. So I was like, well, I'll invest in in Las Vegas. And a buddy of mine just moved, one of my clients actually, who was flipping houses in Vegas, and I think he only flipped one. And he's like, you should try it in Vegas. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. It's cheap, and the numbers made sense. So, and he's like, I'll manage it for you. I'll do everything for you. I was like, okay, that sounds great. So I ended up putting my first down payment down. Actually, since I wasn't living in Vegas, I had to put 20% down, because if you do like a house hack where we talked about earlier, where you essentially live in one unit and which is owner occupied units, you can put 3.5% down and do a FHA loan. Or if you're in the military, you can do a VA loan, or you can borrow money from other people. There's all sorts of different ways. But I had to put 20% down because I was out of state investor. I wasn't owner occupied. And I put down, I think $36,000, put a down payment on a single family house. And then I was able to rent that out. And I have a whole story about that, but that'll make this podcast a very long podcast.
We do have that story though. If it's a story, it is on one of our previous podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Go check that out.
Go through and look for real estate investing on a different podcast. You'll definitely find it there. But from there, I bought the next year, I saved up enough money again, bought another single family home. And then on my third one, I was able to use the equity that has grown over time over those last 2 years to pull out that equity and put down money on a 4-unit. And so that 4-unit, I think it was like $80,000 I had put down. So I used $40,000 of my own and $40,000 of from the actual property, because I was able to refinance out the property. The difference between the price of the property and what I owed on the property, I was able to take up to 80%, and which was about $40,000. And I took that out of the property and used that as a down payment on my third property, which was a 4-unit. So that gave us 6 units. And then on the very last rental property, I actually refinanced all 3 of the properties because houses and real estate was appreciating quite a bit in 2019. And so I refinanced all 3 of those properties, took out all the equity and put all that down on, and it was just really just a transfer of equity. And I used none of my own money. I just used the money from the rental properties. And so that's how I was able to get 10 units. And then previously I was actually just hiring a property manager when we got to 6 units, and he handled everything. I literally just would tell him he would send me an email with the name of the person, their credit score, how much they owed in collections, and their credit score. I think I already said that. Maybe their rental history and their job and their driver's license. And it was either yes or no. And then that's pretty much the only decision I had to make. And it was quite passive after that. So I loved having a property manager, and that's how I got into real estate. and how I got the first down payment. And after that, I was just able to compound the gains or the equity into more property.
Nice. Okay. And then obviously, what are some of what's the word I'm looking for? Like not the tips, like, but like the little strategies. Like, obviously, I know we've spoken in the past about like the BRRRR method, and stuff like that. And like, so what other little strategies can you sort of let us know about?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can get into real estate. We talked about house hacking. We've talked about, which is just essentially renting out your spare bedrooms, or renting out a 2, 3, or 4 unit. So that would be considered house hacking. You're living in one unit and then renting out the others. We've talked about we're going to be talking about the BRRRR method. So the BRRRR method is buy, renovate, refinance, rent. Sorry, not in that order. It's buy, refinance. Well, I can't even think. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat is the actual thing. So it's buy the property, renovate it. So you typically want to buy low, and then so under market value, depreciated assets, something that has maybe a lot of, like, an owner that has left it and abandoned it, or needs a lot of work. So then which is renovate, and you fix up the unit, you put money into it so that it appreciates. It is livable at that point, because you're buying at a discount. You buy low, sell high. And so then you renovate that property, you fix it all up so it's actually livable, and then you rent it out, and then that's where you get your cash flow. And then you refinance it. So you do what I was talking about earlier, where you're taking out the money because you've put money into it, it's appreciated in value through forced appreciation, and then you repeat the process. And you are able to essentially take out your first down payment out of that property because you've renovated it. The money that you put into it, you're able to now pull back out of it, and then you can repeat the process. You buy a property that is all screwed up, fix it up, rent it out, take out the money, and then repeat. And so and that's what it's called, the BRRRR method. And you can do that with house hacking. So you need to refinance out of that FHA loan, and then you can repeat the process that way. Live in the property, do a owner occupied, and you can do it that way. You can also flip properties. So that's essentially flipping in a way where you're not just flipping to sell, but you're flipping to hold on long term, is the BRRRR method, versus flipping where you're just forcing appreciation and then selling it for just big chunks of money. And then but then you're paying a lot of capital gains and all that fun stuff. So you have to be careful with that. There's REITs. So if you wanted to REIT, which is real estate investment trusts. So it's essentially you're going in and partnering or buying stocks of a kind of a rental property where you're giving them money and they're giving you kind of dividends in a sense, or money back for investing in their trust. So where they use that money in that trust to buy real estate in different areas, and they're able to essentially buy multiple properties, and then you're getting the benefit of that. They could also then close that trust, pay everyone off, and people get proceeds from that. So that's more of a passive income, but you're not really owning the asset, so you don't get the benefits of depreciation on your taxes, the appreciation, and you do get appreciation if they decide to sell. You do get cash flow because obviously they're paying you a percentage every single month, or whatever the terms are, every quarter, every year, whatever that is. But you don't really get a lot of the good benefits that being a property manager is, or owning the actual property. But you do, but you don't have to worry about tenants. But that's what's so good about hiring a property manager, and that's what we did. And there's so many different ways. There's lease options where you're essentially doing kind of like, you can either do it 2 ways. You can do a lease back option where you say you rent a house and you plan on buying it. So you put a large down payment and you say that, part of my rent is going towards the purchase of this house. And I mean, not everyone will do this. So this is kind of those more like difficult ways to do it, but essentially you put a large down payment on the house and intend to buy it, but you say you're going to rent the house, and a portion of the rents go towards the purchase of the house. And you have to say that I will, have a down payment or pay you off within this X amount of time. And if you don't do that, obviously they get to keep the down payment. So you lose out on a great deal of money. So, it just really depends on your situation, but you can usually get in at a very cheap price. So say, for instance, you know that the housing market is going to appreciate, but you want to lock in the price now. That's a great way to do it. So there's all sorts of different ways to get into real estate. I did the very traditional way of buying a rental property, renting it out, and then continuously buying more rental properties every single year. I did do owner financing. So instead of going through a traditional bank, you can talk to the owner and then become the bank. And so you're usually putting down a larger down payment, and you can do interest only loans. So I did a large down payment. I did interest only on the 4 unit, and that allowed me to not pay down any of the principal, because if I was paying down the principal, then I was getting equity. And even though when that happens, the first kind of 15 years, most of the payments that you're making goes towards the interest anyways. So if you're doing interest only and you plan on selling in the first 5 years, it probably makes sense just to do interest only. But with interest only, you're getting more cash flow. So there's so many different ways to get in real estate. That's why I love real estate.
No, absolutely love it. So obviously, as you say, there's so many different ways you can go about it, which obviously massively helps. Obviously yours was basically save up the deposit and then go and get something. But obviously, as you say, like there's so many different ways to get that initial deposit, which I think is where people initially are stuck, aren't they? Like they're not. It's no fault of their own, because obviously they've not been taught, but the creative systems and the creative ways to get that deposit for real estate haven't really been taught to them, have they? And that is where obviously people struggle, obviously, because that's as you said, that was the hardest thing for you, wasn't it? Was getting the first one. Once you got the first one, everything sort of like didn't fall into place, but everything ran a lot smoother.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, if you understand how money works, there's an unlimited amount of money out there. And yeah, like you said, the way I started with was putting down 20%. But like I said, there's cheaper ways you can do it with an FHA loan. You only need 3.5% down.
What's an FHA
loan? First time home buyer loan.
Okay.
So that's typically where you're a first-time homeowner, you only have you don't have any properties, and this is like your first house that you're living in, and it has to be owner-occupied. There's a VA loan where if you're in the military, you can get in with 0% down, and you just need to pay like closing costs. So there are multiple ways. You can literally get super creative, and you can have a high credit limit on your credit card, and you can take out a cash advance on your credit card. I've never done this, but I've heard of people doing this, and taking out a cash advance on your credit card and then doing a balance transfer to a 0% interest card that again needs to have a high balance, and paying the whole house off with that line of credit, essentially, where you can get a business line of credit, pay the whole house down, and then get a mortgage on that house because it's now paid off. So you do a cash out refi, take the cash out, and then pay off the credit card. So there's so many ways to make money. If there's a deal and you can bring the deal, there's wholesaling to people where this property could sell for more, you get it under contract, and then you sell it to an investor like myself and for a markup, and you get that down payment. And usually people charge anywhere from like $5,000 to $20,000 or $1,000. It just really depends on the markup and how good the deal is. So if you understand real estate, you can make a great deal of money, and there's so many ways to get in it. And there's so many ways to get out of real estate. So it's definitely very I can't say the word. a really cool way to there's so many ways to get into real estate. It's really cool.
Fantastic. Have you gave them everything they need to know?
Probably not. I mean, you need to learn how to pick a location. You need to see there's property managers in space. You need to find out if the rents are good. You need to see the vacancy rates. You need to do a lot of research before you buy any real estate, because you obviously don't want to what happened with me on our first rental property. So there's so many ways to learn, but definitely continuously subscribe to the podcast, because there's all sorts of good nuggets. Also, there's some great, you can look at biggerpockets.com. That's how I started and learned about real estate, which is biggerpockets.com. They have a whole slew of great information there. Just like anything, you learn a great deal amount of the topic, and then it's when you get into the actual doing of whatever it is that you're learning is where you learn the most. And it's not until you actually get into something that you're going to get the most value out of actually doing what you're doing.
Learn by doing.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Obviously, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace.